Hello, YouTubers and NFL fans everywhere. This is Matt, the NFL Fanatic, giving you my Week 16 2022 NFL predictions. Well, ladies and gentlemen, we are coming down to the end of the regular season in the NFL, but it's also coming time, also very close to the holidays for everyone out there. So, from a personal Matt, the NFL Fanatic greeting, I would like to wish everybody out there for this week. I know Hanukkah started yesterday. I'd like to wish everybody out there a happy holiday. For all the people out there that celebrate Christmas, Kwanzaa, Hanukkah, and even for all the people out there that are Jehovah's Witnesses or don't celebrate, that don't celebrate anything. Hopefully, for this time of the year, hopefully everybody can enjoy this time of the year until the new year, till we get to 2023. Holy cow! I cannot believe we are almost done this wild and very up and down year of 2022. But yeah, I just want to say that very quickly. But overall, though, going in, getting into the holiday spirit, the spirit for me with my picks this week has been better. It's been good. The first out of the last 4 16-game weeks, I ended up with winning records again for both my against the spread and straight up picks. Against the spread, I have gone 8-7 this week so far, and straight up, I was able to get a double-digit set of games correct at 10-5. So that equals up to 53.3% against the spread, and straight up 67%. I'm very happy with that. And now overall for the year, I am now 107, 111 with 5 pushes against the spread. And now straight up for the year, I'm now 135, 86-2 straight up. That equals up to 49.1% against the spread. And straight up, that equals 61%, about 61%. Technically, it is 60.99%, but I'm going to round up to 61% straight up. So definitely, hey, if I get 4 really good weeks in a row straight up, I maybe could hit that 65% by the average of getting, about a percent every week. Okay, so getting about 10 games a week, that, should help. That'd be pretty awesome, but I don't know if I'm going to be able to maintain that for how wild the season's been. We're against the spread at 107, 111, and 5. I'm doing better than I usually do, and I still have a good chance I can hit that 500 mark against the spread, but boy, did yesterday... What were there a lot of weird games that some I was able to hit, feel pretty good, and other ones I was like, dang. Just so close. Man. But, so, and look, when you look at those games, the Jags-Cowboys games, this week was the first time in NFL history that there were 3 17-point leads blown in a single weekend. They also said this week, no game, the largest margin of victory for the entire week was 11. There was a 9-point game, I believe, in Arizona-Denver, and then every other game so far has been a 1-score game beside that. So that is entertaining football, and there were definitely wild degrees of where some people really had some confident picks, or some people had, some really good finishes, and others were just wild and wacky, and, that's what you love about the league. My against the spread picks definitely suffered from that. You had the largest comeback in NFL history from the Minnesota Vikings beating the Indianapolis Colts 39-36 after the Colts were up 33-0 at one point. I feel bad for Mr. Matt Ryan, who is now, I believe, not a Hall of Famer, because everything that Matt Ryan has been able to accomplish with the Falcons, the greatest Falcons franchise quarterback of all time, having an MVP and being a multiple-time Pro Bowler, probably having a winning record on his as a quarterback, starting quarterback, what people are going to remember Matt Ryan the most for are going to be that he has the largest postseason or Super Bowl comeback blown in NFL history, and the largest regular season NFL comeback blown in NFL history. That is going to be on his epitaph, his football tombstone. It is incredibly unfortunate, but kind of funny at the same time for him. So there was that. You had the Jags-Cowboys game where Dallas had a 27-10 lead, and in a 9-minute span, Trevor Lawrence, thanks to a Dak Prescott pick, to Rayshon Jenkins, who had a career game, 18 combined tackles, 2 interceptions, including the game-winning pick 6. The Jags went on a stretch of 9 minutes of scoring 3 different touchdowns, 2 to Zay Jones, and I forget the other one who scored the other one. But what a day for the Jags! One of the largest comebacks they've had, and you really feel like for the Jags, they are now taking hold of the AFC South, especially with how the Titans have been looking, especially with their very cruddy receiving core, and the fact that Ryan Tannehill once again dealt with a very bad ankle injury, but he did come back in the game. Though I do want to say for Roger McCreary and the other, that was the best assist I'd ever seen on an interception They got the pick on Justin Herbert at the end of the half to keep it a 7-point game. That was the best assist of the year that I've seen in terms of just tipping the ball and the awareness of that. You had that crazy finish. I have to mention the craziest finish I've ever seen. Patriots-Raiders. Man, for everybody out there, including myself, that had the Patriots plus 1.5. What a brutal and horrific way to end that game off a relay lateral that made no sense. Why in the world, after DeAndre Stevenson got 23 yards on a draw run, did he feel compelled to give it to Jacoby Myers? And Jacoby Myers, to a slight defense, he was a former quarterback in college, or well, he was a former high school quarterback. He used to play quarterback in college for a little bit. Then, and why in the world does he throw it back to Josh McDaniel, or to Mac Jones, where Chandler Jones just jumps right in front of him? Mac Jones just hugs his leg, and he just shoves him off. A great stiff arm. It's a great meme for everybody, all the Mac Jones or the Bailey Zappi truthers out there. If they want to say, what is Mac Jones' career, it's exactly that. Though, to be fair, it is redemption for what he did to Brian Burns last year. Point taken. But, what a crazy, bizarre ending. Big Belichick now falls one game under 500 against his former assistants. McDaniels is now 2-0 all-time against Bill in these games. And just what a wild, bizarre, wacky ending that the Raiders did not deserve to win. But boy, are they happy to win, because that was essentially their Super Bowl last night. You had the Giants-Commanders game. Awkward, gritty, tough game. Kayvon Thibodeau with the play of the game, getting the strip sack, fumble recovery, the fumble forced, the fumble recovery, the touchdown, all of it together. Sack, strip, fumble recovered, and touchdown, all in the same play. That was basically the difference in the game. The Commanders, the big difference in that series, the Commanders committed 3 turnovers. The Giants only committed 1. That's essentially the difference in those 2 games. But now the Giants now sit in the 6th seed at 8-6-1, and the Commanders are at 8-5-1. I'm sorry. The Commanders are now the 7th seed at 7-6-1, and I do believe the New York Giants will make the playoffs due to that half game, because all they need to do, essentially, in my opinion, is to win one of their final 3 games, and I do believe they will get 1 win out of their last 3 to get into the playoffs. And then you have, all the other teams. Look, Dallas got in because of that Giants victory. They backed in. And the Detroit Lions are coming, everybody. The Detroit Lions are coming. They're trying to become the first team since the 1970 Cincinnati Bengals to start out 1-6 and make the playoffs from that start. They've won 6-1 in their last 7 games. The offense has been fantastic. The defense has played really well as well. In 4 of their last 6 games, they've held the opposing team to under 20 points. And that, boy, did they need every bit of that against the Jets this past weekend. And they did not get, Jared Goff did not get sacked one time against one of the best pass rushers in the National Football League in the New York Jets. But the Lions are coming, and I will give this hot take. This will be probably the only person that says this. If you're looking at teams in the NFC that I believe are going to make the Super Bowl, I'd put the Philadelphia Eagles at 1. I'd put the Philadelphia Eagles at 1. I'd put the San Francisco 49ers at 2. And I am not joking here. You can criticize me or give me, hot take machine. I think the Detroit Lions, if they make the playoffs, are the 3rd most likely team to make the Super Bowl. I think they are playing that well. I believe in that staff that much. And just think about it. Do people really believe in the Bucks, the Vikings, and the Cowboys to make it? I'm just saying, we all know what those teams are. Are they better than the Lions? Okay, the Bucks definitely aren't, but the Vikings and Cowboys, sure, by record and proxy, and I know both of them have wins over them. I get that. But who do we trust more? Do we trust the Vikings organization, the Cowboys organization, or the Lions, organization from what you've seen out of the last several weeks? Because I genuinely believe in this Lions team that they probably the 3rd best odds, the 3rd best chance to get there. That's the team I believe in the most if they make it. So, there's that. Kudos to Pittsburgh for getting a win over Carolina and all that other stuff. And I will talk about the rest of the games in my picks. And now it is time for my picks. So here we go. So on Thursday, we only have one more Thursday game left next week. So on Thursday, when the 6-8 Jacksonville Jaguars travel to New York to take on the 7-7 500 New York Jets, the New York Jets are 1-point favorites in this game, which is surprising because from what you've seen out of the Jets, who are collapsing and falling, and the Jags, who are ascending, And by the way, all the Jags need to do is have the Titans lose one more game, and the Jags just win out to get a chance to win the AFC South outright. So I think that is very well possible. The New York Jets are amazingly 1-point favorites in this game, so I'm going to take the hotter quarterback here and the hotter team. And it was just said that Zach Wilson will get his second consecutive start. I didn't think Zach Wilson did as bad yesterday. He did have 2 touchdowns, the 1 bad pick at 315 yards. He did make some very good plays, and the clock manager screwed him. But I'm going to take Jacksonville here, +1, and Jacksonville straight up. Then on Saturday, because it is Christmas week, on Saturday, Christmas Eve, when the 11-3 Buffalo Bills travel to Chicago to take on the 3-11 Chicago Bears. The Buffalo Bills are 9.5-point favorites in this game. Give me the Buffalo Bills here to win straight up, but give me the Chicago Bears +9.5. Then the next game, when the 5-9 New Orleans Saints travel to Cleveland to take on the 6-8 Cleveland Browns. The Cleveland Browns are 3-point favorites in this game. Give me Cleveland here, -3, and Cleveland straight up. Then the next game, when the 5-9 New Orleans Saints, the next game, when the 12-1 Houston Texans travel to Tennessee to take on the 7-7 Tennessee Titans. The Tennessee Titans are 7-point favorites in this game. Give me the Tennessee Titans here to win straight up, but I'm going to take the Houston Texans +7. Then the next game, when the 7-7 Seattle Seahawks travel to Kansas City to take on the number 2 seeded AFC West champion, 7-time consecutive champion, Kansas City Chiefs. The Kansas City Chiefs are 10-point favorites in this game. Give me Seattle here +10, but I'm going to take Kansas City straight up. Then the next game, when the 8-5-1 New York Giants travel to Minnesota to take on the 11-3 Minnesota Vikings. The Minnesota Vikings are 4.5-point favorites in this game. I'm going to take the New York Giants here +4.5, but I'm going to take Minnesota straight up. Then the next game, when the 10-4 Cincinnati Bengals travel to New England to take on the 500 7-7 New England Patriots. The Cincinnati Bengals are 3.5-point favorites in this game. Give me Cincinnati here -3.5, and Cincinnati straight up. Then the next game, when the 7-7 Detroit Lions travel to Carolina to take on the 5-9 Carolina Panthers. The Detroit Lions are 3-point favorites in this game. Give me the Detroit Lions here -3, and the Detroit Lions straight up. And then the next game, when the 5-9 Atlanta Falcons travel to Baltimore to take on the 9-5 Baltimore Ravens. The Baltimore Ravens are 7-point favorites in this game. Give me Baltimore here to win straight up, but I'm going to take Atlanta +7. Then the next game, when the 7-6-1 Washington Commanders travel to San Francisco to take on the 10-4 San Francisco 49ers. The San Francisco 49ers are 6.5-point favorites in this game. Give me San Francisco here -6.5, and San Francisco straight up. Then the next game, and the biggest game of the weekend, when the 13-1 Philadelphia Eagles travel to Dallas to take on the 10-4 Dallas Cowboys. The Dallas Cowboys amazingly are 1.5-point favorites in this game. After everything that went on, please everybody take the Eagles now. While I saw them at 1.5, so give me the Eagles +1.5, and the Eagles straight up to get this game over the Dallas Cowboys. I think that is the easiest bet of the whole week. And then finally on Sunday night, on the 50-year anniversary, or the 50-year-and-a-day anniversary of the Immaculate Reception, when the 6-8 Las Vegas Raiders travel to Pittsburgh to take on the 6-8 Pittsburgh Steelers. The Pittsburgh Steelers are 2.5-point favorites in this game, just like that game on December 23rd, 1972. 50 years later, I'm going to take Pittsburgh here once again, regardless of who's starting a quarterback. If it's Trubisky, Rudolph, or Pickett, depending on if Kenny Pickett can get cleared from concussion protocol, I'm going to take Pittsburgh here -2.5, and Pittsburgh straight up. Then the next game, when the 6-8 or 5-9 Green Bay Packers travel to Miami to take on the 8-6 Miami Dolphins. The Miami Dolphins are 4-point favorites or 4.5-point favorites in this game. Give me the Miami Dolphins here -4.5, and the Miami Dolphins straight up. Then in the next game on Christmas Day, when the 4-10 Denver Broncos travel to Los Angeles to take on the 5-9 or 6-8 Los Angeles Rams. The Denver Broncos are 1-point favorites amazingly in this game, and that could be because of Russell Wilson being possibly able to return. I'm going to take, in my second pure upset of the week, my third pure upset of the week, give me the Los Angeles Rams here, regardless if Russ plays or not, +1 and the Los Angeles Rams, straight up. And then the next game on the nightcap on Christmas night, when the 6-8 Tampa Bay Buccaneers travel to Arizona to take on the 4-10, the 4-10 or 5-9 Arizona Cardinals. I forget which one. When they take on the Arizona Cardinals, the Tampa Bay Buccaneers are 4-point favorites in this game. Give me Tampa Bay here -4, and Tampa Bay straight up. And then finally, in the Monday night game, when the 8-6 Los Angeles Chargers travel to Indianapolis to take on the 4-9-1 Indianapolis Colts, the Los Angeles Chargers are 3-point favorites in this game. Give me the Los Angeles Chargers here, -3, and the Los Angeles Chargers straight up. All right, it's time for my quick thoughts on each game. The Jacksonville Jaguars over the New York Jets. Look, over the last 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, over the last 8 weeks, Trevor Lawrence and that Jags offense has been on a fantastic tear. Trevor Lawrence is top 2 in terms of quarterback rating, completion percentage, and touchdowns, and few interceptions over the last 7 weeks. This is the best football he has ever played. They have played fantastic football. He has Zay Jones having a career high in receiving yards, and yesterday he had a single game high in terms of 3 touchdowns caught from Zay Jones. He had a fantastic game. And for the Jags offense, or Jags total team as a whole, what a massive high amount of points. For the first time in 5 years, the Jags scored 40 points in a whole game, even though it included overtime. And I do want to shout out quickly Foye Oluokun, former Falcon. He's leading the league in tackles, both solo and combined, at 156 combined tackles at this point this year so far. They have been absolutely fantastic, absolutely phenomenal. And like I said, Rayshawn Jenkins is the MVP of the game. 18 combined tackles and 2 interceptions, including the pick 6. What a moment for Jacksonville. And I feel like for Doug and Trevor, you're starting to see that those two are starting to firmly, arguably put themselves moving forward for the rest of the year in the top spot in the AFC South picture for years to come. And as much to my chagrin, is I'm not the biggest Trevor Lawrence fan, or William Lawrence fan, that's his actual name. His actual first and last name, Trevor, for anybody out there, that's his middle name. I have to say that they are, going to become, I believe, the next Peyton Dungy duo of the AFC South moving forward, just because I feel like they are going to be that good. He is going to be that good, and they can hold on to that division, I believe, possibly even up to this year moving forward with how well those two have been and how well that team's been. And they are getting Calvin Ridley next year, which is even going to help things a lot more. And look, this is a weird game. The Jets, one of the big things the Lions were able to do, shut down the Jets running game. They ran for a season low in rushing yards. And that defense, look, they are fighting their rear ends off. When people were talking about the low amount of points, they were 5-1 to begin the year when their defense held opponents to 20 or fewer points. In the last several games where they held them 20 or fewer, they are 1-3 since then. So that offense is not doing well. Besides Garrett Wilson, Elijah Moore making those incredible 3rd down and 4th down conversions, they were basically quiet. Zach Wilson had some awkward, easy passes to Berrios, just like he did before. He had that horrible interception, and it just wasn't great. I do want to give C.J. Uzomah credit. He had his first 2 touchdowns of the season, which basically gave the Jets some advantage. And look, the Jets have won 5 of the last 7 against the Jaguars, and Zach Wilson beat Trevor Lawrence just last year in New York around this time last year. So it's been about a full year. Both these guys, played. Both, have obviously elevated or downgraded their games ever since that year. But I just feel like in this moment with the Jags, even though it's a short week, and the Jets have one of the best defenses, I think Trevor Lawrence can do enough with that talent. It just, when it comes down to it, if I'm going to go with coaching and quarterback, which kind of the two things, I'm going to go with Trevor and Doug Peterson over Saleh and Zach Wilson. Like, if you watch the end of that game and saw that the Jets had 3 timeouts and butchered the clock that badly, how could you trust the Jets, moving forward? Like, could the Jets beat the Seahawks? Sure, because it's just a big mismatch of defense, and the offenses, Zach Wilson and them should be able to move the ball. But I do not think it's possible. The Jets finish 7-10, and then at that point, I fire Robert Saleh and I fire Joe Douglas, because I think that kind of epic collapse from 6-3 to 7-10, going 1-7 in your last 8 games, and the games you had chances and the games you played, screwing or regardless of the quarterback play, it's just not good enough. And I just feel like, again, like in this kind of game, like I'm kind of personally rooting for the Jets a little bit, because I wouldn't mind seeing Zach Wilson beat Trevor Lawrence for a second year, just for my chagrin. But at the end of the day, from what I've seen over the last several weeks, I do think the Jets should lose this game to fall to under 500. So that's why I like the Jacksonville Jaguars here +1. The Jacksonville Jaguars straight up. The next game, the Buffalo Bills over the Chicago Bears. This is one to where, look, the Buffalo Bills had themselves a very good game offensively. They have now won 10 of their last 11 games against the Dolphins at home. Been absolutely phenomenal. Though the one thing that was incredibly concerning was that they gave up. The Dolphins almost ran for 200 combined yards rushing on the ground. That's the second most rushing yards the Bills' run defense has given up this year. And one of the big things that's really helped the Bills is Josh Allen's lack of turnovers during this 5-game win streak. 4 of the last 5 games, Josh Allen has not committed a turnover. And one of the big reasons why they were able to move the ball, move the chain down the field, they were 8 of 14 on third down last week. Usually the team that does better on third down will usually win the game more often. I was concerned about some of the secondary plays. Matt Milano also kind of looked like he wasn't 100%. I know he tried to go through it, he played through it, but that was just a really awkward game. But fortunately for the Bills, they go from playing one of their unique division rivals to now one of the worst teams in the league, the Chicago Bears. I do want to give Justin Fields credit. He becomes the second quarterback ever to rush for 1,000 yards in a single year. So it's him and Lamar Jackson. That's amazing that in the last 5 seasons, that shows you how the evolution of the mobile quarterback has become, to where in 3 of the last 5 seasons we've only had 3 quarterbacks, or 2 quarterbacks, and that hit the 1,000 yard mark rushing. The only other one I believe that had done that was Michael Vick back in prime Michael Vick days in the early 2000s. I also want to give the Bears defense some credit. The Bears defense, through this 7-game losing streak, it only forced 5 turnovers. They only forced 3 in the last 6 games. They were able to get, or 2 in the last 6 games. They were able to get 3 massive turnovers, including 2 on Jalen Hurts yesterday, which really kept the Bears in the game. Also, Justin Fields, he's rushed for 70-plus yards in 5 consecutive games. That is the longest active streak since 1950. And for the Bears, this is their first 7-game losing streak since 2002, when they were one of the worst teams in the league back then. And when you look at David Montgomery at 91 scrimmage yards and 2 touchdowns, so he did, I thought, a good job. He made some good plays. But the Bears defense were able to be very opportunistic. But at the end of the day, they did give up 3 rushing touchdowns to Jalen Hurts, and A.J. Brown had a season-high 181 yards receiving, even though he did not get in the end zone himself. So I think with the weapons the Bills have, and though the Bills have lost 3 of the last 4 games to the Bears, these 2 teams are in very different spots. Allen should have a field day against this very weak Bears defense. They've given up at least 28 points in the last 6 or 7 consecutive games. And I just feel like, again, like in this kind of game, like Justin Fields, he might be able to run through the Bills defense and maybe to make some plays, and maybe the Bears defense with that confidence against the against Chicago, against the Eagles, maybe they can build that confidence against the Bills. But I just think the Bills, with their roster, with their talent, with Josh Allen, just supreme athletic talent both in his arm and his legs, I do believe the Bills win this game. But I'm going to take Chicago plus 9.5 because I do feel like the Bears can definitely hang around the Bills, especially with Josh Allen's inconsistency going into the cold in that Chicago wind. That's going to be tough, and I can see this game being within a 1-score game by the end. So that's why I like Chicago here plus 9.5 and Buffalo straight up. The next game, the Cleveland Browns over the New Orleans Saints. This is one to where, look, Taysom Hill, here's how wonky the Saints offense is this year. The Saints, Taysom Hill leads the Saints with 9 total touchdowns. 9 total touchdowns. 2 passing, 4 rushing, 3 receiving. So that's amazing that he has the most combined touchdowns in an offense with Alvin Kamara and some of the other weapons they have. The Saints, though, one of their big problems was they gave up a season high in rush yards with 231 rush yards to Tyler Algier, Huntley, and Cordero Patterson. And also, I would give Rashid Shaheed some credit. He made a massive 68-yard touchdown reception, the longest reception of his career, and I really like what he's doing in that spot. If they add Michael Thomas back in, I think Shaheed could be a very good, or a good number 3 wide receiver moving forward. I think he's been able to make a lot of plays this year, even with all the quarterback turnover and injuries at the wideout spots. And also, here's another little fun fact. Jawan Johnson. Do you know who has the second most touchdowns for a tight end this year behind Travis Kelce? It's Jawan Johnson with 7. That's kind of amazing. You wouldn't think Travis Kelce and Jawan Johnson would be in the same exact sentence, but they are here. And I want to give the Saints credit. 2 of the last 3 years, the Saints have swept the Falcons in 4 of the last 6 games. And they've won 5 out of 6 overall over the last 3 years. So very good for the Saints. They're now 5-9. They at least get to keep that tiebreaker regardless of what happens if both teams finish out with the same record. So the Browns, I want to give Myles Garrett some credit. The all-time sack leader got another sack and a half. And the Browns' special teams came up huge. The Browns had Tucker miss his first field goal of the season within 50 yards. He missed a 48-yarder and then got a 50-yarder block. And Denzel Ward got the first interceptions on a Ravens quarterback in the red zone this year. That was an incredible job by Denzel Ward. Hats off to you, sir, for the win. Though, I do want to say, everybody, I just want to point this out there. Mr. Deshaun Watson, if I am a Browns fan, kudos for the victory. Job well done. I'm not being a salty Ravens fan. However, though, Deshaun Watson has looked pathetic, piss poor in the offense with the Browns, with that offensive line and talent. He has played more games this year now than led offensive touchdown drives. He's led 2 offensive touchdown drives in 3 games. And this last game, he lost Marcus Peters midway through the third quarter of that game. And he was playing at the time the 26th ranked pass defense. And he's only got 1 offensive touchdown in the game. Cade York did screw up. After starting at 8-8 for his career in kicks, he's missed 5 of his last 20 kicks. So that's, missing 20% of the time. And he missed definitely a 37 and a 43-yarder kicks that should have been made, especially when he made the 50-plus yarder against the Panthers in Week 1. So I think that is a definite big concern for this. But I just think, again, what I just said, the Saints are giving up their most rushing yards of the season. They're playing the 3rd leading rusher in Nick Chubb. And I feel like, in a way, like with this game, when you look at the Browns and the Saints, Dalton's are playing better than Deshaun, I feel like, in ways, through their small samples. But at the end of the day, when you have both these 2 teams, equally competent running games, both equally kind of fighting for that last little sliver of playoff spot, the Browns still might have a genuine chance. The Saints are just playing because of how bad the NFC South is. But always in these type of games, I'm going to go with the better quarterback, and I believe that will be Deshaun Watson once again. I do hopefully think that hopefully he will increase his yardage and touchdown throws. But after that, though, we shall see. But I do have the Cleveland Browns winning this game because they're at home. And I'm just going to trust the Browns apparatus and Deshaun to outplay Andy Dalton in a very weird and tough, mediocre game of the week. So that's why I like Cleveland here -3 and Cleveland straight up. The next game, the Tennessee Titans over the Houston Texans. Look, after losing by double digits in their last 4 games, they've had their last 2 games come down to the wire, and including overtime. And one of the big reasons why the Texans have started to play a little bit better or more respectably is that they are forcing turnovers. The Texans defense has forced 2 or more turnovers in their last 3 consecutive games. And you know what's weird? This Davis Mills, Jeff Driscoll quarterback combo package, it's not doing bad. Like, I can see, Davis Mills had a very nice run. Also had a very nice touchdown to, I believe, Jordan Akins. Like, that Texans team has played a little bit better since they've gone to this double quarterback scenario. It's weirdly working. And again, look, they won't have Dameon Pierce or their other big rookie, Derek Stingley, for the rest of the year. And I think the hard part is the Texans have not won a home game yet this year. So that's going to be kind of a dreadful ending for the Texans there. I think they have to go on the road, or they have to... No, well, they have 1 more home game against the Jags, but they have 2 of the last 3 on the road. I do think the Texans will lose out at home, which is going to be a very sad distinction. And it's one of those things. Look, the Titans, I thought they played a respectable game. And if you were a Charger fan, knowing how many injuries that they've had to go through, it should be concerning that you were in a literal 3-point game at the end by Decker the kicker against them. The Titans have the second most players on the IR this year. Traylon Burks has, basically been a non-factor. Their leading receiver is Robert Woods, still at about 418 yards. That is really bad when you're looking at A.J. Brown and the career year he is having so far. And look, the Titans, the one good thing I will take advantage of is they have the second best run defense in the league. And with Rex Burkhead and that lack of guys, like Malik Willis won this game where Derrick Henry ran for over 230 yards and had 5 touchdowns. I do think Derrick Henry should have another good game against this very bad Texans defense. And I'm just going to trust that Tannehill, Malik, whoever plays, they can just play complimentary game-managed type football enough that they can win this game. With all the injuries and lack of talent and Tannehill obviously being banged up, I do believe that the Texans can hang on to this 7-point spread. And it feels very much like last year when the Texans pulled off one of the big upsets of the year, beating the Titans outright after Tannehill had a 4-turnover day against Texans. But at this point, I think with the Titans' urgency, I think they get this win to at least maintain their spot in the AFC South, and then it's going to come down to Can the Jags win out, and can the Titans choke it out to change the playoff seeding in the AFC for the rest of this year in a very big way? But I'm going to take Houston's last two efforts against much more superior teams, and I'm going to take it against the Tennessee Titans, who have been just kind of now just muttering around in mediocrity. So I am going to take the Titans to win because I can't go against them, against this team. They've won 5 of the last 6, but I will take Houston +7 because I do think the Texans, for as many flaws or as positive or negative things that they have, they are, a good enough team to cover that 7-point spread. So that's why I like Tennessee here straight up, but Houston +7. The next game, the Kansas City Chiefs over the Seattle Seahawks. This is one to where one of the big injuries for me is that Tyler Lockett, the great wide receiver for the Seattle Seahawks, it broke a bone in his finger, and he will likely be out the next 2 games. He hopes to come back by the end of the regular season. I wouldn't rush it. I don't believe the Seahawks are going to make the playoffs, and just him playing around to just play for a meaningless spot, I think is pointless. But we shall see. Maybe he genuinely believes that they still have a chance. And they do, technically. And then, when you look at, the Seahawks, the Niners defense have held the Seahawks to their 2 lowest offensive yard totals of the year, which is incredibly impressive. When you look at the Seattle defense overall, they are the 2nd worst run defense and the 3rd worst total defense in yards and points. And here's another sad distinction for Seattle. They have had an offensive turnover in every single game this year, which is incredibly frustrating and maddening. And look, here come the Chiefs, though. The Chiefs defense has a season low in total yards, so that's a very nice thing. But they have given up the most passing touchdowns in the league so far this year. And in a weird way, the Chiefs are basically doing what they did a couple years ago. To where, every game that they should be in, everybody believes, including myself, that they should get, more decisive victories. But now through 9 weeks, through all these games, they've played in 9 one-score games to where they're 6-3 in those games. 2 of those losses, by the way, were against the Bills and the Bengals, who people would argue are better teams than you, the Chiefs, right now. And, to me, I feel like with the Chiefs here, they should, starting to play a little better. Hopefully Clyde Edwards-Helaire can come back a bit healthy and help this run game. Because Pacheco, even as violent as he runs, his problem is he really can't hold on to the ball that long, and he ends up fumbling it. He had another fumble yesterday, which helped the Texans get into a nice scoring position and score on the rest of that drive. But I'm going to take the Chiefs here just because, again, I'm going to trust Mahomes and that roster to beat the Seahawks. But I'm going to take the Seahawks +10 here because of how bad the Chiefs' defense is. They've given up the most passing touchdowns in the league. I do think with Geno's weapons and the very short but stout running back in Kenneth Walker should be able to make some plays and keep this game respectable in a way. But when you're the Seahawks, who are trying to get their first win against the Chiefs in Kansas City since Week 11 of the 1999 season, I think this time around it's not going to be very fortunate for the for the Seahawks moving forward. So that's why I like Kansas City here straight up at Seattle +10. The next game, the Minnesota Vikings over the New York Giants. This game is to where, look, Minnesota, I don't know what you believe in them, Minnesota, if you're a non-believer in the Vikings, you take all what you want from the first half. If you do believe in the Minnesota Vikings, you take everything you saw from the second half. You combine both of them, and you still get the Vikings around 3 or 4 seed in the NFC. Though this week, after the Cowboys blew that game against Jacksonville, I will at least Minnesota move up from them from 4th to 3rd. I do believe they have jumped the Dallas Cowboys, even though Cowboy fans might get mad at me and say, well, they blew them out. I know, but that's just one game. Look at where, the Vikings and Cowboys are moving forward at this point in the year now. When you look at, this game, one of the very impressive things, this was the second game in NFL history where a team had trailed by that many points and won the game. It is also up to the Vikings defense as well. They held the Colts to under 32 total yards, and in the second half and overtime. Justin Jefferson is also possibly on the branch of NFL history. He's only 332 yards away from breaking Calvin Johnson's single-season record for the Detroit Lions for most receiving yards in a single year. To me, like, this is one of those things to where the Vikings have just been a better squad. They have more talent all around. That Giants defense, though, look, that Vikings offensive line at times has shown to be a problem. So I do think the Giants can make some endway with their pass rush, with their run defense. But when it comes down to an end-of-game scenario, I'm going to trust the Vikings at 1 o'clock on Christmas Eve against the Giants team, who should be able to make it because they do play the Colts in next week, and I feel good about their chances. But I just think at the end of the day, it's still Minnesota and the Giants. Minnesota has just been clearly more consistent, clearly better, and just in a way, just you trust the Viking staff to make a few more big decisions that'll work compared to not. So, but I'm going to take the Giants here plus 4.5 because I felt so confident in the Colts, and they ended up blowing a 33-point lead. I'm like, I'm just probably going to stick with your opponent on the money against the spread because I just feel like that's the best thing to move forward. So that's why I like the Minnesota Vikings here to win straight up with the New York Giants plus 4.5. Next game, the Cincinnati Bengals over the New England Patriots. This is just Cincinnati just clearly being the better team. It's their largest comeback in 5 years in terms of 17-point comeback. The Bengals forced 4 turnovers on 5 drives in the second half against Tom Brady. And all those turnovers helped in a big way. They only gained 44 total offensive yards to get 17 points on the board in that third quarter stretch. And it's just Cincinnati, though, man. Like, they are probably in the league the best team, out there. You could trust them over the Bills and Kansas City for a variety of reasons, and I could buy that. And I do think the Bengals have the best chance moving forward to win the AFC entirely, just especially while Joe Burrow's been playing. He's had 3 touchdowns and only 1 interception and played really solid, fundamental, and sharp football against a weakened Bucs secondary. And it's just one of those things where, look, it's the Patriots and Bengals. Man, Belichick, I do want to give Ramondre Stevenson some credit. He did have a career high in rushing yards. I believe he had 172 rushing yards. Very nice by him. They needed all those yards they could, including the sad thing is that those 23 extra yards, maybe that was the party yards they didn't need because it just led into the debacle that we all have talked about, that I've talked about over this video. But Josh Uche did get another sack, and Mac Jones is now going out to, do something. They've had 99 points off turnovers, which is, the most in the league. So their defense, when they get turnovers, they score on a lot, but the problem is when they don't, it's just not great. And for this game, Chandler Jones, game-winning fumble return, that was only the 3rd time in NFL history that happened at the end of regulation. First time was in New England, ironically, was when Chuck Shanta did it against the New York Titans in 1950, and the other one was the Holy Roller game by Oakland by Dave Casper. So, of course the Raiders are around miracles like that. And also, I'm going to give Josh Uche some credit. He did have another sack, so now he has 11 sacks for the year. And for Mac Jones and the Pats offense, he had a season low in terms of completion percentage, total yards, lack of big plays, and then one embarrassing moment against Chandler Jones. And, it's just one of those things where, look, the Bengals could do that against a Bucs team, which actually has some talent and a little bit of at least postseason hope. What are they going to do against this Patriot team, which has been arguably the most anemic offensive team in the entire league? Also, Cincinnati is trying to get their first win in New England since 1986. So it's been 36 years since the Bengals have traveled up to New England and won a game in New England. So I think it's going to be a very interesting moment, but I do think the Bengals, with their talent, with their consistency, with the guys are going to be able to get back, though Sam Hubbard is a big loss, I think the Bengals win this game easily and officially knock the Patriots out of playoff contention for the rest of the year. So that's why I like Cincinnati here, minus 3.5, and Cincinnati straight up. The next game, the Detroit Lions over the Carolina Panthers. Look, this is a game to where I'm taking the Detroit Lions because they're on one of the best rolls of the season. They're trying to become the first team since the 1970 Bengals start 1-6 and get into the playoffs from that very, very low point. And it's kind of crazy though as well because the Lions now have won more times. They're 2-0 at MetLife Stadium this year. They were both able to play the Giants and the Jets respectively. But now, once they leave the Meadowlands, they go back to 1-3 on the road, and it's just very ugly and very awkward moving forward with that, with the idea of the Lions' road woes. Also, I think one of the biggest issues with the Panthers yesterday was they ran for a season low in rushing yards. They only ran for 21 combined yards, where Najee Harris, Trubisky, and Pickens had their basically, way with the Panthers defense. And look, the Panthers are going to be motivated as well. The last time the Panthers played Detroit, the Panthers shut out Detroit 20-0. And I honestly feel like that is going to be a massive concern for the Panthers moving forward. I do think the Lions, look, they have Brock Wright on an incredible 4-from-1 play, that 50-yard touchdown pass. A lot of big guts there, but it worked out. But I just believe in this Lions team enough that they should be able to get a win over the Panthers and get above 500 for the first time all year, which is going to be an amazing moment because it's going to show people that the Lions are actually going to make the playoffs with this game. So that's why I like... let's see here. That's why I like Detroit here. -3 and Detroit straight up. The next game, the Baltimore Ravens over the Atlanta Falcons. This is one to where I'm taking the Ravens based off quarterback play. I think the Falcons defense, they have some holes, but that defense hasn't been that bad. And our defense is pretty stout too when it comes to receiving positions. The Falcons have more rushing yards this year than passing yards. So that shows you how bad this quarterback room has been, since basically they just have one body out there that's a desperation move for them. A lot of quarterback issues. And look, they haven't been able to pass the 200-yard mark offensively in 10 of their last 11 games. They have the second worst passing offense in the league, and they're playing the Ravens with John Harbaugh, who is one of the best coaches to go up against for rookies from the Ravens' perspective. Harbaugh is 20-6 all time against rookie quarterbacks. And the Ravens have the third best rush defense in the league. So after all the great movement the Falcons were able to get last week, I do think that gets halted by the Ravens defense. Harbaugh is also now 20-6 against rookies. He's only lost one game at home to a rookie, so far. And I also believe, though, it was the first time since 2015 that Justin Tucker missed 2 field goals in the same game. I know one was blocked, but I think that has to be since 2015 where he missed 2 field goals in a single game. So, and Harbaugh lost only to one rookie at home. I'm trying to remember who that is. But also, they're playing the third best run defense. And I just am going to trust that Hundley or Lamar should be able to outplay Tyler Hundley, or should be able to outplay Desmond Ridder in their game this weekend when they play. It should be an interesting game, and I'm not going to discount the Falcons for pulling off the upset, but I just think the Ravens are just a bit better in all facets of the board. So that's why I like Baltimore here to win straight up and give me Atlanta +7. The next game, the San Francisco 49ers over the Washington Commanders. This is one to where when I look at this game, Washington is just kind of hanging on by a thread. The only positive bright spot is Brian Robinson has 613 total rushing yards. He has done a very good job and has earned the right to be the number 1 running back moving forward for the rest of the season. Though, when you just look at this Niners team, though, they, besides the Chiefs, no opposing quarterback has thrown for over 275 yards passing. They've had the 4th most turnovers forced, and Nick Bosa leads the league in a sack, and he almost had two big sacks against the Seahawks yesterday. And Brock Purdy is the first rookie quarterback to win his first road start since Alex Smith did back in 2005. So very nicely done for the kid. He's played good football. My favorite play of that whole game was that double fake reverse. That was incredibly smart, incredibly well done, executed well. And I just feel good about that. Again, it's one of those things where San Francisco, they've won 5 of the last 6 games against the Commanders. I feel like they have a much better defense, much more controlled running game, and I believe the Niners should easily win this game off a tough Washington game. It's going to be tough and physical because the Commanders are definitely not going to lie down for anybody. So That's why I like San Francisco here minus 6.5 and San Francisco straight up. Or San Francisco straight up. The next game, the Philadelphia Eagles over the Dallas Cowboys. Jalen Hurts has the second most rushing touchdowns in a single season. Only Cam Newton has more at 14 so far, so that's incredibly impressive. Jalen, look, also A.J. Brown, money well spent, over, about 10 receptions, 181 yards. Plankton did not have, Jalen Hurts. Yeah. When you look at that, Jalen Hurts had 370 combined yards, 3 more rushing touchdowns. He only trails Cam Newton now for a single season in terms of rushing touchdowns. Jalen has 12, so he needs 3 rushing touchdowns over the last 3 games. Or even, the last 2, due to the nature of the Eagles possibly clinching the NFC East and home field advantage next weekend on Christmas Eve in Dallas. Also, Hassan Reddick. Here's another fun little stat for everybody. Hassan Reddick becomes the first player in NFL history to have 3 straight sacks of 11-plus sacks in a season with 3 different teams. He had an 11-sack season with the Cardinals, the Panthers, and now the Philadelphia Eagles. If it wasn't for Rashawn Jenkins, Hassan Reddick might have gotten his second Defensive Player of the Week. And the one thing, though, that Dallas should take solace in is that the Eagles have the 19th ranked rush defense in terms of total yards. So if there's one way that the Cowboys can beat them, it's through running the football. Also, here's another fun little stat I found out. Dak is only one of 4 quarterbacks this year to average 1 interception per start. He's thrown 11 in 9 games. So the other 3 quarterbacks that have that distinction are Davis Mills, Matt Ryan, and Carson Wentz. What a list for Dak Prescott to be on this time of the year. So he definitely needs to improve his game by significant leaps and bounds in order to feel good about how his future with Dallas will hold and how fans will be starting to feel the rush if Dak continues to struggle. But also the other problem is the second most rushing touchdowns given up by a defense is to the Dallas Cowboys defense. So with that Eagles running attack, with how lethal it is with Sanders, Gainwell, Scott, and Jalen Hurts, they should be able to easily win this game. I do think this game will be bet down to about a pick 'em. So if you can get points on the Eagles, take this bet right now, because that's what I was doing, and I was so ecstatic because I could not believe that through all the ups and downs the Cowboys have gone through, they still believe that home field advantage, it's really not that much of a home field advantage, will matter for the Cowboys. I don't think it will, and I do believe the Eagles get this victory and clinch the 1 seed, and then debate what do they do for the next 2 weeks, the last 2 weeks, since they have nothing to do. So that's why I like Philadelphia here, plus 1.5, Philadelphia straight up. The next game, the Pittsburgh Steelers over the Las Vegas Raiders. Look, Derek Carr had a nice 3-touchdown game. He got a big 25-yard touchdown to Darren Waller. That's Darren Waller's first touchdown since week 2. Josh Jacobs had about another 90 rushing yards. Though the Raiders did blow another 14-point lead, it was Bill Belichick who outsmarted himself by running the dumbest play in NFL history, that stupid lateral. But when I look at the Raiders and Steelers, I trust the Steelers team a bit more. The Steelers defense had a season low in terms of total yards, and they have held opponents to 20 or fewer points in 6 of the 7 starts, started by T.J. Watt that he finished. Also, T.J. is also the 3rd fastest player to get 75 sacks. There's only J.J. Watt and Reggie White is the only 2 other defensive players that were to be that fast and getting that significant of a number of sacks in about 4 years. So it's one of those things to where, again, like, do the Raiders have more talent? Sure, and the Steelers are just kind of meh, and you don't know about Kenny Pickett. But I saw enough out of Mitch Trubisky, Najee Harris, and Jalen Warren, and Pickens, and I feel like the Steelers can move the ball at, a good pace against this Raiders defense, and I do believe that the Pittsburgh Steelers win this game on Immaculate Reception night. You couldn't really ask for it any better. But yeah, so I think it'll be an interesting game, and I wouldn't be surprised if people took Las Vegas. Look, they're on a big high, but usually every time this teams get on like that big of a high, the very next week they don't know how to act, and they go right back down to where they used to go, or they used to be, or just kind of right back down to mediocrity. And I just don't think a mediocre Raider team going against Pittsburgh at night on Christmas Eve will be able to get that victory out. And I think the Steelers do at least cover, at least win by 3 points. So that's why I like Pittsburgh here, minus 2.5, and Pittsburgh straight up. Then the Christmas games, let me go very quickly here because these games really, there's not a lot to talk about. The Miami Dolphins over the Green Bay Packers. Look, this is Tua's second career 3-game losing streak. The other time he had it was back in last year before he went on that 7-1 run. He had a 3-game losing streak back then. I thought he did okay. He threw about 200 yards, 2 touchdowns, including a very nice one to Jalen Waddle. But I'm looking at it saying this is more just about how bad the Packers are. Look, Aaron Rodgers has been phenomenal in Miami. 6 touchdowns, 1 interception, a 2-1 record, including a 2-0 record, in Miami. and look, but it's one of those things where look, Tyreek and Jalen are big playmakers. They both should be getting healthier and feeling better. I look at what the Dolphins were able to do in terms of rushing yards. That was the second most rush yards they had produced offensively, but also that was the most total yards they had given up defensively their last game to the Buffalo Bills. I think the biggest thing is Christian Watson, especially when now the big news, Sammy Watkins has been waived by the Green Bay Packers. If you can double Christian Watson, especially Romeo Doubs still may be dealing with an ankle injury, I don't know if he'll be back, but I just don't believe that the Miami Dolphins, with the confidence they have, the talent they have, should be able to lose this game. I know Rodgers isn't great, and I know Rodgers isn't playing like Brady or Russ or Kyler or any of that other stuff, but it's just not great because it's probably going to be coming to an end here for Rodgers in Green Bay because I just don't have confidence they'll be able to make the playoffs. So should be a good game though. And again, I am a little bit tempted to take Green Bay plus 4.5, but going in Miami on Christmas Day, I feel good about where the team is. I feel good about where the roster is, and I do think with these last 3 games against decent defense, but not daunting ones like the Niners or the Bills, I do think the Dolphins win out and they start this week. So that's why I like Miami or minus 4.5. Miami straight up. The next game, the Los Angeles Rams over the Denver Broncos. This is one where I'm going to go with the better quarterback. Though it is kind of amazing though that thanks to Russ and Billy Ripien, the Broncos offense was finally able to score 23 points in back-to-back games. And I'm going to give Justin Simmons a shout out as well. He leads the Denver Broncos in interceptions with only 5. And Latavius Murray or Marlon Mack, Marlon Mack and Peyton Manning are now the only quarterbacks in NFL history, or the only players in NFL history to score a rushing touchdown for both the Colts and the Broncos. So I thought that was a pretty nice distinction for them. And I just, at the end of the day, it comes down to Russ and Baker. I think both teams are about the same. Receiving cores are banged up. Both teams are basically out of it, essentially. At the end of the day, in this kind of game, you're going to go with the better coach and the better quarterback, and that is Baker Mayfield and Sean McVay over Russ or Ripien and Daniel Hackett, who, by the way, should be fired at the end of this year. Even though he's got 4 wins to his name, and I objectively understand why he wouldn't do it, I just think for Russ's sake and where this team's future needs to go, he needs to be out of there, and an Eric Bieniemy from the Chiefs or somebody from there needs to step in and help revitalize this Broncos franchise, especially the offense, move forward with a potentially good team moving into next year. Though I do have to say, they defensively have been outstanding. They essentially have held basically every opponent to under 23 or 24 points outside of Kansas City. They have been absolutely sensational and phenomenal while their defense has played. So, but at the end of the day, in this game, like I said, I'm going to take the better quarterback and coach. That's McVay and Baker over Ripien, Russ, and Hackett. So, that's why I like the Los Angeles Rams here, +1, the Los Angeles Rams straight up. Then the final 2 games, Tampa Bay over Arizona. Arizona might be playing Trace McSorley. If they weren't, they're going to be playing Colt McCoy. The Cardinals still haven't won in Denver, amazingly, as a franchise. And it's just not great. And I just feel like, again, like the Bucs, look, a lot of big things happened. Tom Brady had his worst turnover-prone quarter of his career. He has 8 losses for the first time in his overall career. And he lost the first game in his NFL career where he led by 17 or more points at any point in the game. He was 89-0 entering that game. He can now be 89-1 with the second years moving forward. And it just is one of those things to look. Nobody's really going to be impressed with the Bucs closing schedule. Bucs fans would be happy that they won 3 games, but beating Colt McCoy / Trace McSorley, Sam Darnold, and Desmond Ridder doesn't really inspire a lot of people. Doesn't really inspire me moving forward. A a lot of confidence. So, yes, and that's what I'm saying. It's like, I just feel like, again, like in that game, you go with the better quarterback and the better roster. That's Tom Brady and the Bucs. Like, if they lose that game against the Cardinals, the Bucs don't deserve to make the playoffs. Like, the Bucs have had their problems, and I get it. Wholeheartedly, I get the problems with the Buccaneers, what they've had. But if they don't win this 3-game stretch to where you are playing basically 3 teams that know they are not in the playoff hunt, and you're playing you're playing Trace McSorley or Colt McCoy, Sam Darnold, and Desmond Ridder to end the year, and Todd Bowles loses one of those games, allowing the Panthers to survive, or, if the Panthers win, to win the division, then the Bucs don't deserve to make the playoffs, and Tom Brady needs to get into a nice FedEx box, ship himself out to Miami, put a nice retire tag on that box, and get the heck out of football if he loses one of those last 3 games. Yeah, I think he still leaves, but, that's just my thought. There's not a lot of analysis with that. So, or there's not a lot to say positive or big in this game, just besides, again, Brady against McSorley or McCoy. Take Brady to win. So that's why I like Tampa Bay here, -4, and Tampa Bay straight up. And lastly, the Los Angeles Chargers over the Indianapolis Colts. I'm taking the Los Angeles Chargers here because the Chargers, look, congratulations to Justin Herbert. He became the first quarterback to have 3 straight 4,000 passing yard seasons in his first 3 years. The Chargers had 4 sacks at the defensive front, which is incredibly impressive because I don't think they had Joey Bosa. And Dre Tranquill was the star of the game. He had 10 total tackles. And they are playing the Indianapolis Colts, which is absolutely amazing that, Jeff Saturday in the last 2 weeks had NFL history on his hands, and he blew it with the number 33. They allowed 33 points in their last 2 games ago against the Colts in the fourth quarter. That was the most for the Dallas Cowboys and the most since the merger. And then he made full NFL history by blowing a 33-point lead against the Minnesota Vikings in back-to-back games. And Jonathan Taylor has a high ankle sprain that at this point, with where the Colts season's going, he's going to be out for the rest of the year. So that's just going to be, extra cherry on top. If you want to trust Zach Moss and Deion Jackson running the football for the rest of the year, you do that. That offensive line hasn't been that great anyway. And, so with all that being said, I think the Chargers easily get a nice, comfortable win. And I do believe the Chargers, with their record, should be able to win out and at least get the 6th seed in the playoffs moving forward. I do believe it'll be the Ravens, Chargers, and Dolphins as the 3 teams that make the playoffs from the AFC. And the one wildcard team out of those 3 that I'd be most concerned about are the Los Angeles Chargers. Because I feel like even though you may not like their coach, Brandon Staley, they probably have the most talent across the board on both sides of the ball, including Dicker the kicker, who's been a great revelation for him to win that game. To win a postseason game. Again, the Colts, they're playing with an absolute bum of a head coach and Jeff Saturday. They're not going to have their best running back. That offense is going to be squandered in nothing, and the Chargers should be able to win out easily with just their talent and Justin Herbert's just ability to throw. So that's why I like the Los Angeles Chargers here, -3, and the Los Angeles Chargers straight up. And that is it. So like, comment, rate, subscribe. Please check out the NFL YouTube Prognosticators page. Also check out Fire and Brim Sports, Raiders Report, Mitchell Renz, Half Moon Picks, Bridgewater's Finest, Andrew Warren, The Blind Canadian Cat, all kinds of guys and gals that make predictions. If you type in NFL Week 15 or Week 16 2022 predictions, check everybody out. See what their opinions are, and if you want to make your own opinions and you don't like, mine or anything like that, make your own videos. See what people think of your opinions. Because everybody, on this platform and YouTube's allowed to do that. So best of luck to all players, coaches, fantasy players that are in the playoffs. I hope I am, but we'll see at the end of this week. And fellow prognosticators. And until right before the new year, I will make my next video for my Week 17 prediction, second to last week of the year. And until then, though, everybody, happy holidays. And again, thanks for watching. And until next time, this is Matthew Fanatic signing off. Until next time, everyone, so long.